They say monsters are born from tragedy, not the womb. But what happens when the monster begins to remember he was once a man? I hope by the end of my story, I'll discover if there's still humanity left beneath these claws, if I'm still worthy of the throne that was stolen from me, or the touch of a woman who sees beyond the beast. The first time I caught her scent, it was like lightning striking dead earth. Something ancient stirred in my blood, a memory of who I once was before fur replaced skin, before howls replaced words. Maybe that's what terrifies me most. Not that I've become a monster, but that she might make me remember what it means to be human again. Mira pressed herself against the rough bark of an ancient pine, her heart hammering so loudly she feared it might give her away. The villager's threat still echoed in her ears. Venture into the Wildlands again, witch, and we'll make sure your sister joins your parents at the pyre. Her fingers tightened around the cloth bag of herbs at her waist. What choice did she have? Cinna's fever had worsened through the night, her small body burning like kindling. Only Silverleaf could break such a fever, and it grew in just one place, the sacred spring deep within the forbidden forest. With every heartbeat, Mira pushed herself deeper into territory no villager had entered in decades. The forest seemed to watch her, ancient and knowing. Branches swayed without wind, leaves whispered secrets she couldn't understand. More than once she felt eyes upon her, calculating, curious, hungry. Truth be told, she'd heard the rumors since childhood. A beast roamed these woods, massive, white as snow, with eyes that glowed like winter moons. The elders claimed it was a demon, punishment for the village's sins. Some whispered it was the ghost of the fallen Lycan king, murdered with his queen while their heir disappeared without a trace. The deeper she ventured, the more the forest changed. Dark pines gave way to silver birch, their white bark almost luminescent in the dappled sunlight. The undergrowth thinned, revealing a path Mira swore hadn't existed moments before, as if the forest itself guided her. Without thinking, her feet followed this new trail. Time stretched and compressed like pulled honey, minutes bleeding into hours until she found herself in a clearing unlike anything she'd seen before. At its center sparkled the sacred spring, water clear as diamonds, edged with clusters of silver leaf glowing faintly in the afternoon light. "Thank the stars," she whispered, rushing forward. Her fingers trembled as she plucked the precious herbs, tucking them carefully into her pouch. With every leaf she pictured Cinna's face, fever-flushed but growing stronger. The air thickened. Her wolf stirred. Wait, her wolf? The thought made no sense, yet it echoed in her mind with unsettling familiarity. Before she could move, a low growl shattered the clearing's tranquility. Mira froze, her blood turning to ice in her veins. Slowly she turned. Between the trees stood a wolf larger than any predator she'd ever seen. Powerful shoulders rising higher than a man's waist, fur white as fresh snow with hints of silver at the ruff and eyes. Gods above those eyes, blue as glacial ice and burning with an intelligence that stole her breath. This was no ordinary beast. This was the beast, the monster of legend. Her body moved on instinct, one step back, then another. The massive head tracked her movement, muscles bunching beneath that pristine coat. "Please," she whispered, though she knew beasts couldn't understand human words. "My sister will die without these herbs." The wolf's ears flicked forward, head tilting slightly as if it understood. And just like that, everything changed. The creature's posture shifted, the aggression melting away like snow in spring sun. It lowered its massive head and took a step backward, creating distance between them. It wasn't attacking, it was retreating. Despite that, Mira knew she should run. Every sane instinct screamed for flight. Yet something held her rooted, the same inexplicable feeling that had guided her through the forest. Instead of terror, curiosity bloomed in her chest. "You understand me, don't you?" she asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The wolf blinked once, slowly. She could have sworn it nodded. The wind shifted, carrying her scent toward the beast. Its reaction was immediate and shocking. The wolf's entire body went rigid. Those ice-blue eyes widened. A sound escaped it. Not a growl, but something almost like recognition. What followed was even more bewildering. The massive creature sank to its haunches, then lowered its front legs until its belly touched the forest floor. Head bowed, it looked submissive. No, not submissive. Reverent. Mira's heart skipped a beat. "What are you?" she whispered. Without warning, the wolf's head snapped up, ears flattening against its skull. It growled, not at her, but at something beyond the clearing. Before she could react, the beast lunged forward, moving with impossible speed for its size. She gasped, certain it meant to attack, but instead, it circled behind her. Its massive body positioned itself between her and whatever threat approached from the forest's edge. The moment their eyes locked, something cracked inside Mira's chest. A wall she hadn't known existed. Warmth flooded through her, strange yet familiar, like a forgotten dream suddenly remembered. "There she is," a voice shattered the moment. "The witch's daughter." Hunters from the village. 3 men burst into the clearing, crossbows raised. "Step away from that beast, girl," the lead hunter barked, "or we'll put you both down." The wolf's growl deepened, vibrating through the ground beneath her feet. Its muscles bunched, ready to spring. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Mira did something that defied all reason. She placed her hand on the wolf's back. Instantly, a jolt of energy surged between them, hot and electric. The beast stilled beneath her touch. "Lower your weapons," she commanded, her voice carrying an authority she'd never felt before. "This creature means no harm." The hunters hesitated, eyes darting between her and the massive wolf. "That's no ordinary beast," the lead hunter whispered, face pale. "It's the demon that took the Lycan prince. Back away, girl." Her chest ached with sudden, inexplicable anger. "He's not a demon," she said, though she couldn't explain how she knew the wolf was male, or why she felt certain of her words. The space between them burned with tension. The wolf shifted subtly, coiling like a spring. Without thinking, Mira stepped fully beside the creature, her hand still buried in its fur. "Leave," she told the hunters. "Now." The lead hunter spat on the ground. "Your parents died helping monsters. Seems the apple doesn't fall far." Yet even as the words left his lips, his eyes betrayed his fear. With clumsy haste, the hunters retreated, disappearing back into the shadowed woods. In the stillness that followed, Mira became acutely aware of her hand still resting on the wolf's back, of the steady rise and fall of its breathing. Beneath her fingers, something stirred, a connection that felt ancient and inevitable. Her voice trembled as she finally spoke to the beast directly. "Thank you." The wolf turned, those impossible eyes studying her face. He stepped back and then, to her complete amazement, dipped his massive head in what could only be described as a bow. Before she could move, he turned and melted into the forest, leaving Mira alone with her racing thoughts and the strange warmth that still tingled in her palm. She didn't know what scared her more, the beast in the woods or the way her soul had answered when their eyes met. Deep down, she knew the truth. Nothing in her life would ever be the same. As the shadows lengthened across the sacred spring, Mira gathered the last of the silver leaf. But even as she thought of Cinna waiting for her cure, her mind kept returning to those ice-blue eyes and the inexplicable feeling that she'd found something she didn't know she was missing. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow she would return. What she couldn't know was that high above, watching from the shadows of an ancient oak, the wolf still observed her. His eyes never left her slight figure as she made her way back toward the village. And for the first time in years, something stirred inside him. Not the beast's instincts, but the distant memory of a crown, a kingdom, and a name. They say you never forget the first time someone truly sees you. Not the mask you wear, but the soul beneath your skin. Perhaps that's why I'm drawn back to these woods despite the danger. I hope by the end of all this, I'll understand why a beast who should terrify me instead makes me feel more alive than I've felt in years. Why his eyes haunt my dreams when I should be running from his memory. The shawl was missing from the hook by the door. Just a simple piece of fabric, faded blue wool with silver thread woven through the edges. But it was the last thing my mother made before they dragged her to the pyre. Now it was gone, and with it, a piece of my heart. Mira's fingers trembled as she stirred the silver leaf tincture, the rich herbal scent filling her small cottage. Behind her, Cinna's breathing had finally evened out, the dangerous rattle in her chest fading with each passing hour. The fever had broken just before dawn. "You saved her," a voice rasped from the doorway. Mira startled, nearly dropping the wooden spoon. Her neighbor, old Greta, stood hunched in the entrance, roomy eyes fixed on Cinna's sleeping form. As if pulled by a string, Mira's gaze flickered toward the empty hook where her mother's shawl should have been. Greta tracked the movement, her weathered face softening. "You went into the Wildlands," she stated, no question in her tone. "The elders are gathering. They know." Mira's heart skipped painfully against her ribs. "I had no choice." That night, as the village glowed with torchlight from the elders' meeting hall, Mira slipped out the back of her cottage, following the narrow path that wound behind the village gardens. Not toward the forest, not yet, but to the ancient weirwood tree that marked the boundary between safe lands and forbidden territory. Her bones remembered the way. The same path her parents had taken countless times to help wounded rogues, outcasts who couldn't seek treatment within village borders. The same path that had led to their execution. Without warning, a figure stepped from behind the massive tree. Mira's breath caught in her throat, a scream building. "Peace, child," Greta whispered, holding up gnarled hands. "I bring warning, not harm." Before either could speak further, a low growl rippled through the darkness. Time stood still as an enormous white form emerged from the shadow of the forest's edge, hackles raised, eyes gleaming like blue fire in the darkness. What followed was both terrifying and remarkable. Instead of fleeing, Greta lowered herself awkwardly to her knees, head bowed low. "My prince," she whispered, the words nearly lost to the night breeze. The beast, the same white wolf from the sacred spring, stalked forward, massive paws silent against the earth. His gaze slid from Greta to Mira, and immediately something in his posture changed. With every step he took toward Mira, his aggression seemed to melt away, replaced by something almost like reverence. The transformation was so profound that Mira found herself reaching out, fingers extended toward that magnificent creature who should have terrified her. "You recognize me," she whispered, wonder threading through her voice. Under the weight of his stare, something inside her shifted. The wolf lowered his massive head, and for the second time, Mira witnessed what could only be described as a bow. "He remembers who he was," Greta murmured. Mira glanced sharply at the old woman. Who was? Greta's eyes gleamed with unshed tears. The young prince. Before the massacre. Before the curse. The wolf growled softly, moving between them as if protecting Mira from Greta's words. Yet there was hesitation in the beast's movements, a flicker of recognition when the old woman spoke of princes and curses. As the silence roared around them, Greta continued, "They say his uncle betrayed him, killed the royal family, and cast him into these woods to die. But the prince had already begun his first shift. His wolf took over, protected him when his human mind shattered from grief." The wolf's head snapped toward Greta, ears flattening against his skull. It was the first confirmation that the beast understood human speech. "How do you know this?" Mira demanded, her voice barely above a whisper. A beat later, Greta smiled sadly. "I was a royal healer, child. Before I fled to this village, I helped deliver him into this world." Mira felt it, clear as day, the moment the beast's attention returned to her. Those impossible blue eyes seemed to plead with her, though for what she couldn't say. Her thoughts spun wildly. A prince? Cursed? These were the tales mothers told children to keep them from wandering into the dangerous woods, not reality. And yet, "What's his name?" she asked, the question escaping before she could stop it. The tension broke like glass shattering. The wolf lunged forward with blinding speed, knocking Greta to the ground, massive jaws snapping inches from the old woman's throat. "No!" Mira cried, throwing herself forward without thought. Her hands buried themselves in thick white fur, pulling the beast back with strength she didn't know she possessed. To her shock, the wolf yielded immediately to her touch, backing away from Greta with clear reluctance. Shadows danced between them as clouds crossed the moon. The old woman scrambled to her feet, pressing herself against the weirwood trunk. "Never speak his name," Greta gasped. "Names have power." His uncle bound his humanity with blood magic. The prince's true name is the key to the curse, and the reason he cannot shift back. The wolf pressed forward until its massive body leaned against Mira's legs. The contact sent waves of warmth through her, oddly comforting despite the circumstances. "The elders have voted," Greta continued, regaining her composure. "They're sending hunters at first light, to kill the beast and anyone who aids him." Her instincts surged in fierce, immediate rejection of the threat. "Let them try," Mira heard herself say, the words carrying unexpected steel. What scared her more than the wolf, more than the hunters, was how natural it felt to defend this creature, as though fate whispered in her ear, guiding her toward something inevitable. "Be careful, child," Greta warned, already backing away. "The prince was beloved once, but the beast has killed many in his years of exile. Both sides of him are dangerous." After the old woman disappeared into the night, Mira found herself alone with the massive wolf, the reality of her situation crashing down around her. She should be terrified. She should run. Instead, her hand moved almost of its own accord, reaching out to gently stroke the beast's head. The wolf leaned into her touch, eyes drifting closed. "I have to get back before they notice I'm gone," she whispered. His eyes snapped open, and the loss she read in them made her chest ache. "I'll return tomorrow night," she promised. "We'll figure this out." As if understanding, the wolf stepped back, creating distance between them. But before he melted back into the shadows, his massive head dipped once more in that strange formal bow. Mira made her way home beneath the moonlight, her mind racing with questions. She didn't know what scared her more, the hunters coming at dawn, or the realization that somewhere beneath that fur and fang was a man she was already beginning to care for without ever having seen his face. When her name left his lips, if he could speak again, what would it sound like? Morning found something unexpected on Mira's doorstep. Her mother's blue shawl, carefully folded, with a perfect white lily placed atop it. Both smelled of wild places and pine. Her heart skipped a beat as she clutched the shawl to her chest. The wolf hadn't stolen it after all. He'd been protecting it, returning it, giving her a gift. The world tilted beneath her feet as a truth settled in her bones. This was more than chance, more than a strange encounter in the woods. Something ancient and powerful had awakened between them, something that felt remarkably like destiny. Beneath the shawl lay a single perfect paw print pressed into the soft earth of her doorstep. Not a threat, but a promise. He would return, and somehow, she would help him remember what it meant to be a man. "I never knew silence could speak until I met a beast with no voice, his eyes telling stories his throat could not. I hope by the end of all this madness, when hunters circle and magic threatens, I'll hear him speak my name just once. Because somehow I know that when this wolf becomes a man again, everything inside me will recognize him as mine, as if we've been circling each other for centuries, waiting for this moment when fate would finally allow us to collide." The first time I felt his skin against mine, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath, waiting, watching. His hand trembled as it cupped my face, those blue eyes wider with wonder than fear, as if touching me was the first truly human thing he'd done in years. Mira traced the paw print outside her door with gentle fingers, heart hammering against her ribs. 3 nights had passed since she'd promised to return to the forest's edge. 3 nights spent caring for Cinna and avoiding the suspicious glares of villagers who whispered witch when she passed. 3 nights of dreams filled with blue eyes that shifted from beast to man and back again. The hunters had ventured into the Wildlands at dawn as promised, armed with silver-tipped arrows and determination hardened by fear. They had returned before dusk, with nothing to show but minor wounds and tattered pride. Faces ashen as they described a white shape that moved like smoke between the trees, always watching, always just beyond reach. Without thinking, Mira gathered her healing satchel and slipped through the shadows toward the weirwood tree. Beneath the moonlight, the massive trunk gleamed bone-white, its red leaves trembling in the night breeze. On the other hand, she hesitated. Crossing the boundary meant choosing a side, choosing him. Even so, her feet carried her forward, her heart already committed to a path her mind still questioned. "I know you're watching," she called softly to the darkness. "I know you're there." Silence answered, dense and expectant. Then a twig snapped deliberately to her right, not the sound of an approaching predator but an invitation to follow. What followed was a dance unlike any Mira had experienced. With each step deeper into the forest, the white wolf would appear between trees, guiding her with intelligent eyes before disappearing again, only to reappear further along the path. The air thickened with unspoken communication, a language of movement and breath that required no words. With every heartbeat, she felt something ancient awakening inside her, responding to his presence in ways that defied explanation. Eventually, the trees thinned, revealing a small clearing bathed in silver moonlight. At its center stood not the sacred spring of their first meeting, but something that made Mira's breath catch, a small stone structure, partially collapsed, yet still somehow majestic. Moss-covered columns framed what might have once been an altar, now open to the night sky. As though summoned by her wonder, the white wolf materialized from the shadows, padding silently to stand before her. His massive head tilted questioningly. "What is this place?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. The beast circled her once, his fur brushing against her legs in a gesture that felt both protective and possessive. Then he moved toward the ruined altar, looking back at her expectantly. Truth be told, she knew this had to be sacred ground, a place where the veil between worlds thinned. She could feel it in the air, taste it like electricity on her tongue. Maybe it was fate, or maybe something deeper, but Mira found herself speaking to him as if he could answer. "Greta said you were cursed, that you can't shift back." The wolf's ears flattened momentarily, a low whine escaping his throat. The sound pierced Mira's heart like a physical pain. Before she could move, a growl rose in his throat, not threatening but frustrated, desperate to communicate. He pawed at the stone altar, claws scraping against ancient symbols carved into its surface. "These are Lycan runes," she realized aloud, recognizing them from books her mother had hidden beneath floorboards, forbidden knowledge of the old ways. As the sky darkened with gathering clouds, Mira made a decision. Lowering herself to the forest floor, she patted the ground beside her. "Sit with me," she invited. "I'll stay a while." To her surprise, the massive beast settled beside her, close enough that his warmth radiated against her side. Unthinking, she began to speak, telling him of Cinna's recovery, of the herbs she'd gathered that morning, of memories from childhood when her parents still lived. The wolf listened with unnerving focus, his eyes never leaving her face. Occasionally he would rest his massive head against her knee, and each time, something inside her melted a little more. While her pulse raced with the strangeness of it all, she reached into her satchel and withdrew a small worn book, tales of the Lycan kingdoms her mother had read to her as a child. "Would you like me to read to you?" she asked, feeling both foolish and certain he would understand. The look he gave her held such naked longing that tears sprang to her eyes. Without another word, she opened the book and began to read by moonlight, her voice carrying through the clearing. She read tales of ancient Lycan kings who could command armies with a thought, of queens whose magic caused flowers to bloom in midwinter. She read about royal bloodlines and sacred bonds, her voice growing hoarse as the night deepened around them. As her voice trembled with fatigue, something changed in the air, a pressure building like the moment before lightning strikes. The wolf lifted his massive head suddenly, nostrils flaring as if scenting danger. Before Mira could question, he leapt to his feet, hackles rising. A low growl rumbled from deep in his chest. "What is it?" she whispered, clutching the book to her chest. In the echo of his voice, no, not his voice, but something else. A sound like distant thunder rolled through the clearing. The wolf's body tensed, muscles bunching beneath white fur. Her breath caught as shadows seemed to dance across his form. Between one breath and the next, the beast began to change. It happened slowly at first, a tremor that raced across his massive frame, then faster, fur receding like tide from shore. The transformation seemed to cause him pain. His growls became something else, something almost human. Time stood still as the wolf's form blurred, shifted, rearranged itself before her very eyes. Where moments before had stood a massive white beast, now knelt a man, naked, trembling, head bowed as if in prayer or pain. His hair fell in dark waves around a face that remained hidden from her view. But his body, God's above, his body was beautiful in its masculine perfection. Broad shoulders tapered to a narrow waist, muscles shifting beneath skin that gleamed pale in the moonlight. Mira couldn't move, couldn't breathe. This was impossible. This was miracle. With a single glance, she took in the scars that mapped his skin, evidence of wounds that should have been fatal. One particularly vicious mark curved from his left shoulder across his chest, disappearing at his right hip. Her world tilted as his head slowly raised, and those familiar blue eyes, the same impossible shade she'd seen in the wolf, met hers from a face so breathtakingly beautiful, it seemed crafted from her deepest dreams. His lips parted, struggling to form words long forgotten. The sound that emerged was raw, broken, barely human, yet it contained the echo of nobility. "Mira," he managed, her name a prayer on lips unused to speech. The tension broke. Without thought, Mira surged forward, hands reaching for him even as his body began to tremble with the effort of maintaining human form. Her fingers touched warm skin, not fur, and the contact sent electric shocks racing through her veins. She cupped his face as tears blurred her vision, overwhelmed by emotions she couldn't name. "You're real," she whispered. "You're here." His larger hand covered hers, pressing her palm more firmly against his cheek. The heat of him burned through her, not fever but something more primal, more essential. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, he leaned forward until their foreheads touched, his breathing ragged with effort. "Help," he whispered, the word clearly causing him pain. "Me remember." Before she could respond, his body seized, muscles locking as the night air rippled around them. The transformation took him again, this time faster, more violent, and within moments the wolf stood before her once more, eyes haunted with human awareness. In the stillness that followed, Mira realized she was crying. With trembling fingers, she reached out to touch the wolf's head, burying her hands in familiar white fur. "I will," she promised through her tears. "I'll help you remember who you are." The beast, no, the man within the beast, pressed against her hand, eyes closing briefly as if memorizing her touch. Her chest ached with sudden certainty. This wasn't just about breaking a curse or rescuing a forgotten prince. Something far more powerful connected them, something that felt remarkably like destiny. As the moon disappeared behind clouds, Mira knew with bone-deep certainty that she would return to this place again and again until the man inside the beast could fully emerge. Until he could speak more than just her name. What scared her most wasn't the magic or the danger. It was how desperately she wanted to hear his voice again, to feel his skin beneath her fingertips. When his name left his lips, when he could finally tell her who he truly was, what would change between them? As dawn approached and they parted at the forest's edge, the wolf watched her go with eyes too human, too knowing. And for the first time, Mira realized the most dangerous part of this pursuit wasn't the beast at all, but the way her heart raced at the memory of a man she had only glimpsed for moments. A man she was already falling for, despite having heard him speak only a single word. Her name. They say love is gentle, patient, kind, but no one warns you about the kind that burns like wildfire, consuming everything in its path. I hope by the end of this night, when blood stains my hands and accusation fills his eyes, I'll know if what grows between us can survive the truth of what we both are, monster and witch, predator and prey, two broken souls seeking redemption in a world that offers none. Because the most terrifying part isn't that I've fallen for a beast. It's that I'm beginning to understand why he became one. His eyes held mine as the villagers' blood pooled beneath our feet, and in that moment, I glimpsed something worse than the beast. I saw the man who chose to become one. The whispers followed Mira through the village square, slithering between market stalls like venomous snakes. Consorting with demons, one woman hissed to another, not bothering to lower her voice as Mira passed. Just like her mother, came the reply. The whole family's tainted. Before she could move past them, Elder Thorn stepped directly into her path, his weathered face twisted with disgust. The hunter spotted you, he said without preamble, entering the Wildlands, speaking to the beast as if it were human. Mira's heart slammed against her ribs, but she kept her expression neutral. I don't know what you're talking about. Truth be told, she'd been careful, or thought she had. For 3 weeks now, she'd slipped into the forest under cover of darkness, meeting the white wolf at their ruined temple. 3 weeks of reading ancient texts to him, watching his eyes spark with human recognition. 3 weeks of witnessing his struggle to maintain human form for increasingly longer periods. 3 weeks of falling impossibly, irrevocably in love with both beast and man. Elder Thorn's eyes narrowed. Your lies won't save you, girl. The council meets tonight. Your fate will be decided then. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Mira lifted her chin. On what charges? Treason, he spat. Aiding the enemy. Witchcraft. Without another word, he pushed past her, shoulder knocking against hers with deliberate force. The air thickened around her as villagers stopped to stare, their faces a sea of suspicion and fear. Only Cinna, sweet Cinna, pressed closer to her side, small fingers clutching at her skirt. Are they going to burn you like they burned mother and father? Her sister whispered, voice trembling. Mira's throat closed around the lie she wanted to offer. Instead, she knelt, meeting Cinna's frightened gaze. Listen to me, she said urgently. Tonight, after sunset, you must go to Greta's. Stay there until I come for you. A beat later, Cinna nodded solemnly. The understanding in her young eyes broke something in Mira's chest. As the sun began its descent, Mira gathered only what was essential, her mother's book of remedies, a small pouch of dried herbs, the blue shawl that now carried both her mother's scent and his. The rest she left behind. Whatever happened tonight, she knew she wouldn't be returning to this cottage again. With the first stars appearing in the twilight sky, Mira slipped from the village, not toward the weirwood tree, but along the little-used path that wound behind the mill. She needed to reach the forest before the council meeting ended, before they came looking for her with torches and rope. Yet even so, she wasn't careful enough. Witch! The voice cut through the gathering darkness sharp as any blade. What followed was chaos incarnate. 3 men from the village, hunters by their garb, emerged from the shadows of the mill. One carried a crossbow already loaded, its silver-tipped bolt gleaming in the fading light. Going to meet your demon lover? The tallest one sneered, reaching for her arm. Her body moved on instinct, With strength born of desperation, Mira twisted away, breaking into a run toward the tree line. The forest was so close, just yards away, she could almost feel its protective shadows. A whistling sound split the air. Something hot and sharp grazed her upper arm. She stumbled but didn't fall, the scent of her own blood sharp in her nostrils. Between one heartbeat and the next, everything changed. A roar, not quite wolf, not quite human, erupted from the forest's edge. The white wolf launched from the darkness, a blur of fury and muscle. He slammed into the nearest hunter with such force that the man flew backward, head cracking against the mill's stone foundation with a sickening sound. "Calder, no!" The name tore from Mira's lips before she realized she'd spoken it. The wolf froze mid-lunge, his head whipping toward her, blue eyes wide with shock. In the echo of his voice, that forbidden name hung heavy in the air between them. Without warning, the second hunter charged forward, blade flashing. The distraction cost the wolf precious seconds. As the knife descended toward his exposed flank, Mira screamed a warning. The wolf twisted, jaws closing around the man's forearm with crushing force. Bone snapped. The hunter's agonized scream pierced the twilight. While the forest held its breath, the third hunter, the one with the crossbow, took careful aim at the beast's heart. Her world narrowed to that single moment, the bolt ready to fly, the wolf still locked in combat with the second hunter, unaware of the deadly threat. Her thoughts spun wildly. Without thinking, Mira lunged forward, colliding with the crossbow hunter just as he released the trigger. The bolt flew wild, disappearing into the gathering darkness. The hunter rounded on her, face contorted with rage. His hands closed around her throat, squeezing with murderous intent. As the truth unraveled before her, edges of Mira's vision began to darken. Her lungs burned. Her pulse roared in her ears. Something inside her shifted, something primal and ancient that she'd felt stirring since her first meeting with the white wolf. With his scent in the air and Death's fingers tightening around her throat, Mira felt her body changing. Pain lanced through her bones. Fire raced beneath her skin. Her scream transformed into something else entirely, a howl that split the darkening sky. The hunter released her throat, stumbling backward, eyes wide with horror. "She's one of them," he gasped. Before the transformation could complete itself, a white blur crossed her vision. The wolf, her wolf, tackled the hunter to the ground. What followed was brutality in its purest form. Teeth flashed, blood spattered across white fur. The hunter's scream cut off abruptly, replaced by a wet, gurgling sound that would haunt Mira's nightmares for years to come. Silence descended, broken only by her ragged breathing and the soft sounds of the wolf, of Calder. As he stood over the hunter's lifeless body, she felt it, clear as day, the moment his awareness returned. His massive head slowly turned toward her, blue eyes clearing of battle rage, filling instead with horror at what he'd done, at what she'd seen him do. "Calder," she whispered again, tasting his name on her tongue for the second time. The beast recoiled as if struck. With one last agonized look, he turned and fled, disappearing into the forest's depths. Her soul answered with pain as she watched him go. She had named him, had spoken the forbidden word that Greta had warned her against. And in doing so, she'd shattered something precious between them. The space between them burned with unspoken accusations. He believed she feared him now, feared the monster he could become. But that wasn't the truth that made her tremble. The truth was far more terrifying. She had recognized the savage joy in his eyes as he protected her, and something within her had responded, had wanted to join him in that deadly dance. The wind carried his name into the forest, a whispered plea. Calder. In the quiet that followed, Mira became aware of the 3 bodies lying scattered around her. 1 dead, 2 perhaps still clinging to life. She should feel horror, revulsion, grief. Instead, a strange detachment washed over her. These men had tried to kill her, had tried to kill him, and something inside her, something that had been sleeping her entire life, had finally awakened in response. As the sky darkened fully to night, Mira made her choice. She would follow him, follow Calder, into the forest. But first, she needed to retrieve Cinna. Her chest ached with the knowledge that nothing would ever be the same. The wolf knew she knew his name. The curse that bound him was weakening. But at what cost? Would he forgive her for speaking the forbidden word? Could he understand she hadn't meant to break whatever fragile trust existed between them? More importantly, could he accept the truth she herself was only beginning to understand? That her strange connection to him wasn't coincidence or fate? That perhaps she too carried Lycan blood? Without another word, Mira turned toward the village, toward Cinna, and the future that awaited them both in the Wildlands. Behind her, the mill's shadows concealed evidence of violence that would be discovered come morning. By then, she and Cinna would be gone, following a white wolf deeper into a world she barely understood but somehow belonged to. As she walked, snow began to fall, the first of the season, covering blood and footprints alike in a blanket of pristine white. They say that love is a choice you make every day, but what happens when choosing love means choosing darkness? I hope by the end of this revelation, when truth shatters illusions and blood reveals heritage, I'll understand why fate marked me as his from birth, why the moon pulls at my bones when he's near. Because tonight, I must decide: remain human in a world that has only shown me cruelty, or embrace the monster within and stand beside a fallen prince who needs me more than he can admit. The most terrifying part isn't the choice itself. It's how desperately I want to choose him. His uncle didn't just steal his throne, he stole his humanity. And now I hold both in my trembling hands, unsure if returning either is mercy or cruelty. Snow blanketed the wildlands in pristine white, transforming the forbidding forest into something magical overnight. Mira trudged through knee-deep drifts, one arm supporting Cinna while the other clutched a makeshift torch against the pre-dawn darkness. "Are we almost there?" Cinna whispered, her small face pinched with cold despite the layers Mira had wrapped her in. Truth be told, Mira wasn't certain herself. She'd been following an instinct more than a path, something that pulled her deeper into the forest, toward the ruined temple where she had last seen Calder in human form. "Soon," she promised, hoping it wasn't a lie. The night had been chaos incarnate. After retrieving Cinna from Greta's cottage, they'd slipped from the village's edge as alarm bells began to toll. The bodies by the mill discovered much sooner than Mira had anticipated. Behind them, torches bloomed like deadly flowers as search parties formed. Ahead lay only wilderness and uncertainty, and somewhere within it, a prince who believed she feared the beast within him. As the silence stretched between heartbeats, Greta's final words echoed in Mira's mind. "Find the ancient throne room beneath the temple. The answers you seek are carved in stone." Before she could dwell further, a twig snapped nearby. Mira froze, instinctively pulling Cinna behind her. From the shadows emerged not the white wolf she expected, but a woman, tall and regal despite her ragged clothing with silver streaking her dark hair. Her eyes gleamed amber in the torchlight. "You smell of him," the woman said without preamble, nostrils flaring, "and of awakening." Mira's fingers tightened around the torch. "Who are you?" The woman circled them slowly, her movements fluid and predatory. "I am Lyra, guardian of the Eastern Territories." She paused, studying Mira with unnerving intensity. "Or I was, before the massacre." With every step she took, Mira felt something stir beneath her skin, the same strange energy that had begun to transform her during the attack. Her wolf pressed forward, responding to the presence of another of her kind. "You seek the prince," Lyra stated. It wasn't a question. "Calder," Mira whispered, the name still strange on her tongue. Lyra's head snapped up, eyes widening. "You speak his name without consequence?" Before Mira could respond, Cinna tugged at her sleeve. "Mira, look." Around them, shadows moved. One by one, figures emerged from the darkness, men and women with the same predatory grace as Lyra, their eyes reflecting the torchlight like animals. The last loyalists, Lyra explained. Those who escaped the purge and have waited for the prince's return. As the sky darkened with gathering clouds, one man stepped forward, older than the rest, his face a map of scars. You spoke his name, Pro, he said, voice gravel rough with disuse. The curse should have killed me, Mira finished. The old warrior nodded slowly. Unless your blood bonded to him. Or what? She demanded. His gaze dropped to her hands, which had begun to tremble with more than cold. Or you share the royal bloodline. The air thickened around them as snowflakes swirled in sudden gusts. Mira's thoughts spun wild as implications crashed through her mind. Royal bloodline? Impossible. Her parents were healers, outcasts who... A memory surfaced, her mother whispering over her cradle. Hide your nature until the white wolf finds you. Words she'd forgotten, words that suddenly made terrible sense. Tell me, she commanded, voice stronger than she felt. What followed was a tale that shattered everything Mira had believed about herself. The night of the royal massacre, the queen had given birth to twins, a son, heir to the throne, and a daughter, hidden away for her protection. The infants were separated, the princess smuggled to a distant village by loyal healers who raised her as their own. Your parents didn't die for helping rogues, Lyra said softly. They died protecting you, the last princess of the Lycan royal line. Mira's breath caught as the world tilted beneath her feet. Her heart skipped painfully against her ribs. That's why I could speak his name, she whispered. Why I'm beginning to shift. Lyra nodded. The royal twins always share a unique bond. When one awakens, so does the other. Sina tugged again at Mira's sleeve, eyes wide with wonder rather than fear. Does that mean you're a princess? And the white wolf is your brother? The implications hit Mira like physical blows. Calder, the beast she'd been falling in love with, was her twin? Her blood? The thought was too enormous, too devastating to process. No. Another voice cut through the gathering. Greta limped into the circle, snow clinging to her gray hair. Not siblings. The tales were crafted to protect them both. As if fate demanded it, Greta unfolded a tattered piece of parchment, a royal family tree with branches that split and reconnected across generations. Distant cousins, she explained, both carrying the royal blood but from different branches separated centuries ago, both hidden from the usurper who still hunts any with a claim to the throne. Relief flooded through Mira, so powerful her knees nearly buckled beneath it. Not siblings. The feelings that had been growing between them weren't forbidden by blood. Yet another complication emerged as Greta continued. But every generation, the royal bloodline must unify to maintain the throne's power. Your parents were promised to each other from birth, as were you and Calder. Between them, something cracked open in the silence. Mira wasn't just falling for a cursed prince by chance. She had been born to be his mate, his queen, his other half. Where is he now? She asked, voice trembling. Lyra's expression darkened. After the killings at the mill, he returned to his most bestial state. He believes he's lost you, that you've seen the monster, and can never love what he's become. Her chest ached with sudden, fierce longing. Take me to him. The loyalists exchanged meaningful glances. The old warrior spoke again. He's at the ancient throne room, but he's not alone. Lyra nodded grimly. The usurper has found him. King Darius, Calder's uncle, has come to finish what he started years ago. The tension broke like ice cracking beneath too much weight. This wasn't just about Mira discovering her heritage or reuniting with Calder. It was about claiming a birthright and stopping a tyrant who had murdered their families. As the wind shifted, carrying the scents of the forest deep into her lungs, Mira felt her senses sharpen. Her canines lengthened slightly, pressing against her lower lip. The beginning of her transformation. I don't know how to fight, she admitted. I don't know how to be what you say I am. The scarred warrior placed a weathered hand on her shoulder. The beast knows. Trust it. Her instincts surged as the group began moving through the snow-covered forest. Sina rode on Lyra's back, eyes wide with excitement rather than fear. As though fate whispered instructions, Mira knew what she must do. The sacred spring near the ruins held ritual significance. Greta had told her that royal ceremonies always began there. If she could reach it before Darius completed whatever dark ritual he planned. We need to split up, she announced. I'll go to the sacred spring. The rest of you create a diversion at the throne room entrance. Lyra studied her with new respect. You begin to think like a queen already. The moment their eyes locked, Mira felt a certainty settle in her bones. This was her destiny. Not just to love Calder, but to rule beside him, to reclaim what was stolen from both of them. Before you go, Greta said, pressing something cold and metallic into Mira's palm. The royal signet. It was your mother's. I've kept it safe these many years. In the quiet that followed, Mira examined the heavy silver ring bearing the mark of the royal house, a wolf with a crown. Her world tilted as understanding flooded through her. Every moment of her life had led to this crossroads, every hardship, every loss, every step through the forbidden forest. With a single glance at her companions, Mira made her decision. Slipping the ring onto her finger, she felt power pulse through her veins, the dormant magic of generations awakening at last. Tonight we reclaim what's ours, she declared, voice carrying authority she'd never known she possessed. Tonight, I call him back to his throne. As the group dispersed into the shadowed woods, Mira broke into a run, her body moving with newfound grace and speed. The transformation had begun in earnest now, not just physically, but in her soul. She was no longer merely Mira the outcast healer. She was the hidden heir, the mate of the rightful king, the woman who would either save Calder or watch him die trying. What scared her more than the battle ahead was how right it felt. This wild, dangerous path she now embraced without reservation. By the time she reached the sacred spring, the moon had risen high above the clouds, bathing the ancient stones in silver light. With trembling hands, Mira knelt at the water's edge, dipped the royal signet into its depths, and whispered the words Greta had taught her, the ancient Lycan call that would echo through blood and bone to reach the one who was promised to her before birth. Calder, rightful king, I summon thee to thy throne. In the forest's heart, a white wolf lifted his head, blue eyes gleamy. Nephew, Darius said, voice silky with false affection. How kind of you to finally return to your rightful place, kneeling before your king. Calder's laugh was rough, rusty with disuse. You wear a stolen crown, uncle. It sits ill upon your head. The blow came swift and vicious, Darius's ringed hand connecting with Calder's cheek, snapping his head sideways. Yet Calder made no sound, merely straightened again, blood now trickling from a split lip to join that from his wrists. As the silence roared between them, Mira fought the urge to rush forward. The loyalists had created their diversion at the main entrance, drawing away most of Darius's guards. But the king himself remained, along with two hulking warriors whose eyes gleamed with unnatural yellow light. Spellbound, came a whisper at her ear. Mira nearly jumped out of her skin. Turning, she found Lyra crouched beside her, amber eyes glowing faintly in the shadows. The guards, Lyra explained, nodding toward the unmoving warriors. Their minds aren't their own. Dark magic. Mira's gaze returned to Calder, drinking in the sight of him even as her heart twisted with anguish. In human form, he was even more beautiful than she remembered, broad-shouldered and powerful despite his captivity, with dark hair falling across his forehead and those haunting blue eyes that seemed to pierce through shadow itself. Why doesn't he shift? She whispered. He could break those chains as the wolf. Lyra's expression darkened. The silver prevents it, and more than that, he chooses this form now. Without thinking, Mira stepped from the shadows, ignoring Lyra's hushed warning. Something inside her refused to hide any longer, refused to watch while Calder suffered. "Release him," she commanded, her voice echoing through the cavernous space. All eyes turned toward her. The guards tensed, hands moving to weapons. Darius froze mid-stride, his expression shifting from surprise to calculation to slow, dawning pleasure. Well, he purred. "What have we here?" But Mira barely heard him. Her attention was fixed entirely on Calder, whose face had transformed at the sight of her, shock giving way to horror, then desperation. "Mira, run!" he shouted, voice stronger and clearer than she'd ever heard it. The chains rattled as he struggled against them. "Get out of here!" Instead, she moved forward, each step deliberate and measured. With every heartbeat, she felt the change rippling beneath her skin, not the full transformation, but something just as powerful. Her senses sharpened, her muscles coiled with newfound strength. The royal signet burned against her finger, as if recognizing its rightful place. Darius studied her with growing interest. "You have her eyes," he said softly. "I should have hunted down every last bloodline branch when I had the chance." As though fate demanded it, Mira raised her hand, allowing the signet ring to catch the light of the torches. "You know who I am." The king's face contorted with sudden rage. The hidden heir, the promised mate. His gaze darted between her and Calder. "How wonderfully convenient to have you both in one place." Calder's struggle intensified, blood flowing more freely from his wrists as the silver burned deeper. "Leave her out of this. Your quarrel is with me." "Oh, nephew," Darius sighed, circling behind Calder to place a possessive hand on his shoulder. "My quarrel is with anyone who threatens my throne. Surely you understand." With a single glance, he signaled the guards. They moved with unnatural synchronization, closing in on Mira from both sides. Her body moved on instinct. With preternatural speed, she ducked beneath the first guard's reaching arm, twisted, and drove her elbow into his kidney. He stumbled, but didn't fall. The second guard circled more cautiously, eyes tracking her movements. "Stop!" Calder roared, his voice carrying such command that even the spellbound guards hesitated. "Darius, if you harm her, I swear by all the old gods—" "You'll what?" Darius laughed. "Kneel at me more aggressively?" Between one breath and the next, something changed in Calder's demeanor. The desperate fury melted away, replaced by an eerie calm that sent shivers down Mira's spine. "I propose a bargain," he said quietly. Darius arched an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "The royal right," Calder said. "I invoke it." The effect was immediate. Darius stepped back as if physically struck. The guards froze entirely. Even the air seemed to still heavy with the weight of ancient tradition. Her chest ached with sudden understanding. The royal right, the oldest law of their kind, allowed a true mate to challenge the judgment of her bonded. But the price— "No," she whispered, the word escaping before she could stop it. Calder's eyes found hers across the chamber, his gaze softening with something that made her heart stutter painfully. "I accept responsibility for all crimes against the crown," he stated formally. "I submit to judgment and sentencing without contest." Darius recovered quickly, thin lips curving into a triumphant smile. "Accepted. Your sentence is death, to be carried out at moonrise. With one condition," Calder continued as if Darius hadn't spoken. "The woman goes free, unharmed, her claim to royal blood forgotten." Before Darius could respond, Mira strode forward, pushed past the guards who seemed unsure whether to stop her, and knelt directly before Calder. The space between them burned with unspoken words. "I won't let you do this," she said, voice low and fierce. As fire bloomed beneath her skin, Calder leaned forward until his forehead nearly touched hers. "You have to," he whispered, the words meant only for her ears. "This is the only way to save your life." The guards finally moved, pulling her roughly to her feet and away from Calder. He didn't resist or struggle, simply watched her with those impossibly blue eyes that now held resignation alongside the affection. "I am not what men become when they've lost everything," he said, repeating words he'd spoken in her dreams. "I am what remains when everything is taken but love." In that moment, with anguish tearing through her chest like physical pain, Mira made her decision. Twisting free of the guard's grasp, she raised her voice to fill the cavernous chamber. "I invoke the mate's right of substitution," she declared. "I offer my blood, my bond, my life." The royal signet blazed upon her finger like a star fallen to earth. The chamber seemed to respond, ancient stones rumbling beneath their feet. Darius's smug expression faltered. "That's not possible. You haven't completed the bonding ceremony." Without another word, Mira pulled a small blade from her boot, the healer's knife she always carried. Before anyone could stop her, she drew it across her palm, letting crimson droplets fall to the stone floor. "I bind myself to Calder, rightful king of the Lycan throne," she stated, each word carrying the weight of ritual. "My blood for his blood, my life for his life, my heart for his heart." The most intense moment came not from Darius's rage or the guard's confusion, but from Calder's expression, devastation and wonder warring across his features as he realized what she was doing. "Mira, don't," he pleaded. "I'm not worth this." She walked away, the rejection shocking everyone in the chamber. Her back turned to Calder. She addressed Darius directly. "The law is clear. You must now judge us both, or neither." The usurper king's face twisted with calculations. To kill them both would violate the ancient laws upon which his own claim to power tenuously rested. "This changes nothing," he spat at last. "Guards, take them both to the cells. The execution will proceed at moonrise." As the guards led them from the throne room, Mira caught one last glimpse of Darius. The usurper king stood alone between the twin thrones, his expression troubled as he stared at the blood, her royal blood, soaking into the ancient stone floor. She felt it, clear as day, the moment the stones absorbed her sacrifice. A tremor ran through the mountain itself, as if the very foundations of the Lycan kingdom were awakening after years of dormancy. Without thinking, she reached for Calder's chained hand. Their fingers brushed briefly, a simple touch that sent electric currents racing through her veins. His skin was fever-hot, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and despair. "Why?" he whispered as they were marched down a shadowed corridor. "Why would you throw your life away for me?" The air thickened between them, charged with emotions too vast to name. Mira met his gaze steadily, allowing him to see the truth she no longer wished to hide. "Because a throne without you is meaningless," she answered simply. "And a life without you is no life at all." His breath caught, blue eyes darkening with something that made her heart race despite their dire circumstances. For the first time since she'd known him, Calder looked truly speechless, the beast and the man equally stunned by her declaration. As they were roughly separated into adjacent cells, his voice finally returned. "I will find a way," he vowed, the words carrying through the stone walls between them. "We will not end here, in darkness. This I promise you." Her world tilted as she pressed her forehead against the cold stone, drawing strength from his determination even as despair threatened to consume her. What scared her more than death was the possibility that they had come this far, found each other against impossible odds, only to be torn apart at the moment of truth. Between them, something cracked open, not just an emotional bond, but something more tangible. As moonlight began to filter through the tiny window of her cell, Mira felt the power in her blood responding to Calder's proximity, to the ancient stones, to the moon itself. The true crisis wasn't their impending execution. It was what would happen when two royal bloodlines bound by love and sacrifice faced death together under a full moon in the heart of their ancestral home. They claim the most powerful magic springs from desperation, but they're wrong. It comes from acceptance. I hope by the end of this transformation, when moon silver runs through my veins and my bones remake themselves, everyone will understand what I've finally learned. We don't become monsters when we grow claws and fangs. We become monsters when we deny what lives inside us. Because as the bars of this prison cell bend beneath my newfound strength and the mountain trembles with ancient power, I'm not becoming something else. I'm finally becoming what I was always meant to be. His equal, his mate, his queen. The first time I shifted fully, the pain was exquisite, like being unmade and reborn in the same breath. But through the agony came clarity. He wasn't cursed with the beast. He was blessed with it. And so was I. Moonlight streamed through the narrow window of Mira's cell, painting silver patterns across the ancient stone floor. With every passing moment, the light seemed to grow stronger, calling to something wild and powerful that stirred beneath her skin. From the adjacent cell, Calder's ragged breathing told her he felt it too. The pull of the full moon, the awakening of power long dormant. The silver chains that bound him hissed and smoked against his flesh, but he made no sound of pain. "Mira," he called softly, his voice steadier now after hours of enforced rest. "Can you see the moon?" She pressed herself against the cold stone wall that separated them, as if mere inches of rock could be overcome by desire alone. "Yes," she whispered back. "It's so bright tonight." A beat later, his voice came again, lower and urgent. "Listen to me. When the guards come, you must do exactly as I say. Darius will want to make a spectacle of our execution. He'll take us to the ceremonial circle atop the temple ruins." Mira closed her eyes, fighting against the helplessness that threatened to overwhelm her. "How does that help us?" "The circle was built to channel Lycan power during royal ceremonies," he explained. "Under the full moon, at the exact place where our ancestors first took wolf form." His voice trailed off, but Mira understood the implication. Something inside her shifted at the thought, not fear, but anticipation. As the silence stretched between them, Mira became aware of other sensations, the distant heartbeats of guards stationed at the corridor's end, the scent of pine and snow drifting through the tiny window, the vibration of the mountain itself beneath her feet, as if the ancient stone responded to her presence. Without warning, a jolt of pain lanced through her body. She gasped, doubling over as fire bloomed beneath her skin. "Mira?" Calder's voice came sharp with concern. "What's happening?" Her voice trembled as she tried to answer. I think I'm changing." "Fight it," he urged. "Not here, not now. If you shift in that cell." But his warning came too late. Another wave of pain crashed through her, more intense than the first. Her bones began to crack and reform. Her vision blurred, then sharpened to impossible clarity. Scents bombarded her, fear, stone, blood, and beneath it all, Calder's distinctive presence calling to her like a beacon. "I can't stop it," she managed through gritted teeth that were already lengthening into fangs. What followed was agony unlike anything she'd experienced before, her first full transformation overtaking her without warning or preparation. Her body twisted and reformed, muscle and bone reconfiguring themselves as the beast within finally broke free of its human constraints. The mountain held its breath as fur sprouted across her skin, as her face elongated into a muzzle, as claws erupted from fingertips that were rapidly becoming paws. Where once had stood a woman, now crouched a wolf, smaller than Calder's massive white form, her fur the rich auburn of her human hair, her eyes still the same striking green. But this was no ordinary wolf. This was a royal Lycan in her prime, power radiating from her in palpable waves. "Mira," Calder breathed, awe evident in his voice despite the stone wall between them. "You've done it." Her wolf surged forward, testing the strength of the iron bars that confined her. They bent slightly beneath her weight, not enough to break, but enough to give her hope. Before she could charge them again, footsteps echoed down the corridor. Guards were coming, drawn by the commotion of her transformation. "Wait," Calder commanded, his voice carrying the unmistakable authority of an alpha. "Let them come. Let them believe they still have power over us." Her wolf instincts rebelled against the idea of submission, but something deeper, the connection between them that transcended words, made her trust his strategy. She retreated to the shadows of her cell, muscles coiled with potential energy. The first guard rounded the corner, torch held high. His eyes widened at the sight of the auburn wolf crouched in the cell where a woman should have been. "Sound the alarm," he shouted to his companion. "She's shifted." In the span of a breath, chaos erupted. Guards poured into the narrow corridor, weapons drawn. One unlocked Calder's cell, silver chains at the ready to transport him to the execution grounds. The moment their eyes locked through the bars, something cracked between them, not breaking but opening, like a door long sealed. "Now," Calder whispered, his gaze never leaving hers. Without thinking, her body moved on instinct. She launched herself at the bars with all her newfound strength. Metal screamed and bent. Stone crumbled where the bars were anchored. With a final push, she burst free in an explosion of mortar dust and ancient iron. The guards scattered in panic, unprepared for a freed Lycan in their midst. In the confusion, Mira streaked past them directly into Calder's now open cell. 2 guards held him, silver chains wrapped around his wrists and throat. Despite the burning metal, his face showed no pain, only fierce pride as he beheld her transformed state. Her wolf knew what to do without conscious thought. She attacked with precise ferocity, teeth closing around one guard's arm with enough force to crack bone. He screamed, dropping his end of the chains. The second guard reached for his blade, but froze as a low rumble shook the very foundation of the mountain. Dust rained from the ceiling. Stone cracked beneath their feet. "What's happening?" the guard cried, fear replacing aggression. Calder smiled, blood streaming from where the silver had burned his skin. "The mountain recognizes its true rulers," he said simply. As the truth unraveled, Mira felt it, clear as day, the moment their combined presence activated something ancient within the mountain fortress. Power surged through the stone, through the air, through their very blood. With a deafening crack, Calder's silver chains shattered like glass, falling harmlessly to the floor. The guards backed away, terror plain on their faces as they realized what they witnessed. Magic from the oldest days, responding to royal blood freely given, and a bond freely formed. Before either guard could flee, Calder moved with inhuman speed. His hands, still human hands, closed around their throats, one in each powerful grip. "Tell my uncle," he said softly, dangerously, "that the rightful king has reclaimed his throne. He has until dawn to surrender or face judgment." He released them with a gentle push that nonetheless sent them stumbling backward. They ran without looking back, leaving Mira and Calder alone in the ruined cell. The air thickened with unspoken emotion as Calder finally turned to her, his hand reaching out to gently stroke the fur between her ears. "Look at you," he whispered, voice rough with feeling. "Magnificent." As though summoned by his touch, the transformation reversed itself. Pain lanced through her again, but lesser now, more a discomfort than agony. Within moments, Mira knelt on the stone floor, human once more, and completely unclothed. Without hesitation, Calder removed his tattered shirt, draping it over her shoulders. The simple gesture of care made her throat tighten with emotion. "How did you know?" she asked, clutching the fabric around her. "How did you know the mountain would respond to us?" His smile was gentle as he helped her to her feet. "I didn't. I hoped." His hand lingered on her arm, warm and steadying. The ancient texts speak of a time when the bonds between royal mates were so powerful they could command stone and sky. Between them, something shifted. The air itself seemed to shimmer with possibility. Mira stepped closer, drawn by an instinct older than thought. "We have to finish it," she said softly. "The bonding." His breath caught, blue eyes darkening. "Mira, we don't have to." "I want to," she interrupted, placing her palm against his cheek. Not because of prophecy or royal blood or because we were promised to each other before birth, but because I choose you, Calder. I choose the man and the beast. The space between them burned with need and longing, held in check by the circumstances. His larger hand covered hers, turning to press a kiss against her palm that sent shivers racing down her spine. "Come," he said, voice husky with emotion. "We must reach the ceremonial circle before Darius realizes what's happening." Together they navigated the ancient corridors, following paths that seemed to reveal themselves as they passed. The mountain itself guided them, stones glowing faintly under their feet, leading them upward toward the surface. They emerged into the snow-covered ruins of the temple's upper level. Above them, the full moon hung like a beacon in the night sky. Directly over the ceremonial circle, a ring of towering stones carved with the history of their kind. At the circle's center waited Lyra and the other loyalists, expressions shifting from worry to wonder as they beheld their rulers approaching hand in hand. "The usurper gathers his forces," Lyra reported, nodding toward the forest's edge where torches flickered like malevolent stars. "They'll be upon us within the hour." Calder's grip tightened on Mira's hand. "Then we have work to do before they arrive." As the wind shifted, carrying the sense of the forest deep into her lungs, Mira felt the wild magic of the place calling to her blood. Here, at the exact spot where the first Lycans had made their covenant with the ancient powers, she and Calder would either reclaim their heritage or lose everything. Her bones remembered what her mind had never known, the ritual as old as their kind. Without instruction, she moved to stand opposite Calder in the circle's heart, moonlight bathing them both in silver radiance. "Are you certain?" he asked one final time, eyes searching hers. "Once done, this cannot be undone." In the quiet that followed, Mira reached for him, her fingers intertwining with his. "I've been alone all my life," she said softly. "I don't want to be alone anymore." As their hands clasped beneath the moonlight, the ancient stones began to hum with power. The circle awakened, responding to the presence of royal blood united in purpose and heart. What scared her most wasn't the magic or the coming battle. It was how completely she had given herself to this man who stood before her, half stranger yet more familiar than her own reflection. "By blood and bone," Calder began the ancient vow, voice steady and clear. "By moon and mountain, I bind myself to you." As the sky darkened with gathering clouds, Mira completed the ritual, her voice joining his in perfect harmony. "Two souls, one pack. Two hearts, one destiny." The mountain trembled beneath them, and as their lips finally met in a kiss that sealed their bond for eternity, the wild magic of their ancestors surged through them both. No longer separate individuals, but two halves of a greater whole, ready to face whatever darkness came. They say power reveals what lies beneath the skin, but they never tell you what happens when two souls bind their power as one. I hope by the end of this reign, when historians record our story, they remember not the battle that won us the throne, but the love that saved us both from darkness. Because standing before the Lycan Council with his hand in mine, I realized the true magic wasn't in our royal blood or ancient lineage. It was in the choice we made to see each other when the world saw only monsters. In loving the beast, I found the man. In accepting the crown, he found his humanity. The first time he shifted after our bonding, I watched in wonder as white fur gave way to skin without pain or struggle. The curse wasn't broken. It was transformed, just as we were. Two beings in perfect balance, neither wolf nor human, but something gloriously both. Dawn painted the ancient stones in hues of gold and amber, as Mira and Calder stood side by side atop the ceremonial circle. Below them, the battlefield spread out like a tapestry. Loyalists to the right, Darius forces to the left, both sides frozen in a standoff as they awaited the outcome of a confrontation no one had anticipated. In the circle's center, King Darius knelt before them, not in supplication, but in defeat. Blood trickled from a wound at his temple, his once immaculate robes torn and soiled. The usurper king's crown lay shattered at Calder's feet, broken during their fierce confrontation hours before. "Is this how it ends, nephew?" Darius asked, amber eyes gleaming with hatred and something close to grudging respect. "Will you execute me before your new subjects? Prove yourself as ruthless as I taught you to be?" Calder's hand tightened around Mira's, their bonded power humming between them like a living current. Since completing the ancient ritual, they had discovered their abilities magnified through their connection, her healer's intuition blending with his warrior's strength, creating something neither had possessed alone. "No," Calder answered, his voice carrying the authority of a true king. "That would make me exactly what you wanted, a beast wearing a crown." Without thinking, Mira moved forward, her free hand reaching toward Darius's wounded temple. The usurper flinched away, expecting pain. "Be still," she commanded gently. Her fingers hovered over the injury, and warmth radiated from her palm. The wound closed, blood dissolving as if it had never been. Darius's eyes widened in shock. "Why would you heal me?" Before she could move, Calder stepped forward, placing both hands on his uncle's shoulders. The gesture was neither threatening nor forgiving. It was something more complex. "Because we are not what men become when they lose everything," he said, repeating the words that had once defined his existence. "We are what remains when everything is taken but love." As the silence roared around them, Mira felt their shared power building, not for destruction but for something far more difficult, justice tempered with mercy. "I strip you of your claim to royal blood," Calder pronounced, ancient Lycan words flowing from him, as if he'd spoken them 1,000 times before. "Not through death, but through banishment. You will walk among humans, wearing human skin, remembering who you were, but unable to access what you were." The air thickened with the weight of magic as old as the mountains themselves. Darius gasped, his body arching as something fundamental changed within him, not painful, but profound. "You cannot do this," he whispered, panic edging his voice as he felt the wolf inside him retreating, becoming dormant. "We already have," Mira replied softly. "May you find peace in the simplicity of one form, one life, one heart." The transformation was subtle, but unmistakable. The amber glow faded from Darius's eyes. His posture changed, becoming purely human. The power that had radiated from him like heat from flame dissipated, leaving only a man, still regal, still proud, but mortal in a way no Lycan had ever been. With every heartbeat, the sun climbed higher, bathing the ceremonial circle in light that seemed to bless their judgment. Lyra and the loyalists approached, heads bowed in respect, while Darius's former supporters laid down their weapons one by one. The space between them burned with possibility as Calder turned to Mira, his blue eyes reflecting all that had transpired and all that was yet to come. "Are you ready?" he asked. His voice meant only for her despite the gathering crowd. She felt it, clear as day, the moment their private conversation became a public declaration. Calder dropped to one knee before her, not in submission, but in partnership. "Mira of the Eastern Territories, daughter of the hidden line, healer of body and soul," he said, voice ringing across the stone circle. "Will you rule beside me not just as my mate, but as my queen? Equal in power, equal in authority, bound not just by blood, but by choice." Her chest ached with emotion so powerful it threatened to overwhelm her. This wasn't just a coronation, it was a revolution. Never in their history had a Lycan king shared power so completely, so publicly. "I will," she answered, the simple words carrying the weight of destiny fulfilled by choice rather than compulsion. Together they faced the assembled Lycans, hands clasped between them. The bond pulsed with their combined heartbeats, stronger now after the night's trials. "The old ways end today," Calder declared. "No more hidden heirs. No more persecuted Omegas. No more divisions between royal blood and common born." Mira continued seamlessly where he left off, their thoughts flowing together like tributary streams joining a river. We build a new kingdom, not of fear, but of sanctuary, not of isolation, but of integration. The moment their eyes locked again, something shifted in the air itself, the mountain responding to their vision with a gentle tremor that felt remarkably like approval. The Wildlands will be wild again, Calder promised, but they will also be home. 3 moons later, the ancient throne room bore little resemblance to the dark, oppressive chamber where Darius had held court. Light now poured through newly carved windows, illuminating walls where fresh carvings told new stories alongside the old. The twin thrones remained, one white marble, one black obsidian. But now they sat side by side rather than facing each other, symbolic of the unity their occupants embodied. Mira adjusted the simple silver circlet that crowned her auburn hair, still unused to its weight despite the weeks that had passed since their official coronation. Beside her, Calder looked every inch the king he was born to be, yet the wildness remained in his eyes, a reminder of the beast that had preserved him through years of exile. "Your Majesties," Lyra announced from the chamber entrance, "the delegation has arrived." Mira exchanged a glance with Calder, their bond transmitting excitement and apprehension in equal measure. This meeting would determine the future of relations between Lycans and humans, the first such diplomatic exchange in centuries. "Send them in," Calder commanded, his hand finding Mira's as it always did in moments of significance. As the doors opened, revealing representatives from 3 human settlements, including Mira's former village, a small figure darted past the formal delegation. "Mira!" Cinna cried, racing across the polished floor to throw herself into her sister's arms. Without hesitation, Mira left her throne to kneel before Cinna, gathering the child close. "I've missed you, little one." What followed was a scene that would have been unimaginable months before, human delegates breaking protocol to smile at the sight of the fearsome Lycan queen embracing her human sister, the formidable Lycan king watching with undisguised affection. In the stillness that followed initial greetings, a young village girl, no more than 7, broke away from the adults to approach Calder directly. Everyone tensed, uncertain how the king would respond to such a breach of etiquette. "Were you really a beast?" the child asked, eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. The question hung in the air, laden with potential offense. The human delegates held their breath. Lyra stepped forward as if to intervene, but Calder simply smiled, the expression transforming his solemn features. He knelt to meet the child at eye level, his movement a mirror of Mira's earlier gesture. "No," he said softly, his gaze finding Mira's across the throne room. "I was lost. She found me." The simple truth resonated through their bond, warming Mira from within. She returned his smile, knowing that their story was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning. That night, as moonlight bathed their private chambers in silver, Mira stood at the balcony overlooking the wildlands that stretched beyond the mountain fortress. Behind her, Calder moved silently, his arms encircling her waist, chin resting atop her head. "Do you regret it?" he asked, the question surprising her. Trading a healer's cottage for a mountain of responsibility? Her wolf stirred contentedly at his proximity, her human heart equally at peace. "Not for a moment," she answered truthfully. Between them something bloomed, not just their bond, but a future neither could have imagined in their darkest days. His lips found the sensitive spot where her neck met her shoulder, pressing a kiss against the mark that symbolized their union. "My Luna," he whispered, the ancient term for a Lycan queen carrying deeper meaning between them. "My king," she returned, turning in his embrace to face him. Without another word, Calder lifted her into his arms with effortless strength, carrying her toward their bed. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, more diplomatic negotiations, more rebuilding of a kingdom long fractured by fear and prejudice. But tonight belonged to them, to the healer who had embraced her wild nature, and the beast who had reclaimed his humanity. As their bodies joined beneath the watchful gaze of the moon, their patron, their power source, their witness, Mira knew with bone-deep certainty that the final transformation was complete. Not from human to wolf or wolf to human, not from outcast to royalty or beast to man, but from two broken souls to one unbreakable bond. A young pup asked me yesterday if I missed my simple life as a village healer. I told him that life is never simple. It is merely smaller or larger depending on how much love we allow it to contain. And my life now, with Calder beside me and our kingdom growing around us, holds more love than I ever imagined possible. They call us the wild monarchs, feared and revered throughout the lands, but those closest to us know the truth. Our strength comes not from our royal blood or our dual nature, but from the choice we make each day to see beyond the beast, beyond the crown, to the hearts beneath.